Don't you dare speak to me that way! You are out of line, and there will be consequences for this insubordination. How dare you cause such a scene! I won't tolerate this! Leave immediately!
The red and blue lights sliced through the rain. A black Escalade idled outside a marble-fronted hotel, its wipers beating a slow, steady rhythm. Inside sat Danielle Cross, CEO of Helios Global Holdings, rehearsing tomorrow's merger announcement in her head. Her phone buzzed in, another reminder from her assistant. Board meeting at 9 sharp. Then came the knock. 3 hard raps on the tinted glass, sharp enough to jolt her from her thoughts. A police officer loomed outside, drenched, one hand on his holster, windowed down. She obeyed. Rain misted her face as she lowered the glass. License and registration. His voice was clipped, commanding. You can't park here. This is a private drive, Danielle replied evenly, gesturing to the valet stand a few feet away. I'm waiting for the concierge. He leaned closer, eyes narrowing. Don't get smart with me. You think I don't know your type. Something in his tone snapped the air. Behind him, guests stopped under umbrellas, watching. A valet froze mid-step. My type, she said quietly. He smirked. Rich 1 minute, resisting arrest the next. The words sliced through her composure. Cameras caught the reflection of his badge in the puddles. A guest began recording. Danielle's hand trembled against the steering wheel, not with fear, but calculation. A single drop of water slid from her hairline down her cheek like a tear. She exhaled once, slowly. Officer, she said softly. Do you know who owns Helios Global? He scoffed. Couldn't care less. Her phone chimed. A new email subject flashed across the screen. City Council approves Helios acquisition. Metro Police depth. Danielle's eyes lifted to the officers, calm and unblinking. He hadn't seen it yet. The rain kept falling. Rain blurred the city lights into streaks of gold and red. Danielle Cross sat behind the wheel of her Escalade, fingers poised over her phone screen, scanning one last investor update before heading inside the hotel. The valet stand was empty. The staff had ducked under the awning, sheltering from the downpour. A thud jolted her. 3 sharp knocks on the window. She turned and saw the uniform window down. The voice cut through the rain, cold, commanding. She pressed the button. The glass slid down, letting in the wet air. Officer, license and registration, he barked. You can't park here. Danielle glanced at the gold valet parking only sign behind him. This is private property. I'm waiting for the concierge. The officer's lip curled. Yeah, you one of the guests. I am. Her voice was calm, measured. He leaned closer, eyes narrowing. Funny, you don't look like someone who stays here. Her hand froze over her purse. A familiar chill spread through her chest. The tone, the assumption. She'd heard it before, in boardrooms, in interviews, in silence that followed her titles. Excuse me, she said quietly. He tapped the glass with his flashlight. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Step out of the vehicle. The command landed heavy. Behind him, 2 valets exchanged uneasy glances. One raised his phone subtly, recording. Danielle's pulse ticked faster, but her expression stayed fixed. May I ask what for? You're obstructing traffic. She looked behind empty driveway. The rain hissed harder against the asphalt. I see, she murmured. Step out. The syllables hit like hammer blows. She reached for her door handle, slow, deliberate. Her reflection in the side mirror, unclosed, unblinking, was the only thing that steadied her. As she opened the door, he stepped closer, hand grazing his holster. Keep your hands visible. She complied. A valet shouted, Sir, she's quiet. Blake snapped. Her shoes touched the wet ground. The air smelled of exhaust and rain. Cameras clicked. Guests whispered. Every detail burned into her senses, the metallic taste of fear, the weight of humiliation pressing against her ribs. Blake moved around the car, peering inside. What's in the back? Documents, she said. I'm a business executive. He laughed once. Low. Sure you are. Her eyes flicked to his badge. Officer B. Blake. The rain dripped from her lashes. You're making a mistake. You people always say that. That line cut deeper than the cold. Her voice came out softer than she intended. You people. He didn't answer. He was too busy scanning the tinted rear windows, searching for something, anything to justify himself. A valet approached, voice trembling. Sir, she's on our guest list. Ms. Cross Penthouse Suite. Blake froze. A muscle ticked in his jaw. Danielle's phone buzzed again. The notification banner glowed through the rain-blurred light. She glanced down, catching just a fragment. Helios Global Holdings acquisition approval confirmed. She looked back up. The balance of power shifted in that instant, silent and invisible. Am I free to go, officer? She asked. He hesitated, eyes darting to the small crowd gathering by the awning. Cameras raised. His voice faltered. You can go. She stepped back into her car without another word, hands steady now. The door closed with a muted click. Inside, her face reflected in the rearview mirror, unreadable, but deep beneath the calm. Something began to turn something cold, something inevitable. The clip hit the internet before dawn. A 30-second video. Sirens, a woman's calm voice, against a man's sharp commands. By morning, it was everywhere. #hotel parking stop trended across every platform. Danielle Cross's face, composed under fluorescent glare, became the newest symbol of public rage. At 7 a.m. Her office blinds were half drawn. The city outside pulsed with traffic and drone cameras. Screens in the Helios Global lobby looped the same footage. Employees whispered as she passed. Their greetings clipped and nervous. Her executive assistant, Maya, waited by the door. You've seen it. Danielle nodded, setting her phone on the desk. It's already in the millions. They're asking for a statement. No. Maya hesitated. Legal says silence looks guilty. I'm not guilty, Danielle said flatly, and I'm not performing outrage for clicks. She leaned against the window, arms folded. The city below shimmered through a sheen of rain. She could almost hear the officer's voice, again, each syllable rehearsed in the public imagination now, dissected, debated, excused. A knock interrupted. Her PR head, Gordon Laird, stepped in, phone in hand. His expression was neutral, but his tone polished with worry. Danielle, you're trending on every network. I recommend a public apology. Request not confrontation, not aggression, just empathy. It'll help optics, she said without turning. Yes, people like a composed, forgiving victim. The silence that followed was absolute. When Danielle finally looked at him, her gaze was cold enough to make him shift his stance. I'm not auditioning for forgiveness. He opened his mouth, then thought better of it. Maya's phone buzzed. The department issued a statement. She read from the screen. Officer Blake acted in accordance with standard safety procedure. The department stands by his actions. Danielle exhaled through her nose. Of course they do. Gordon tried again. If you retaliate, they'll spin it. Angry black executive uses wealth to attack public servants. They'll bury the incident in noise. Her voice dropped lower. Then, I'll use their noise to buy silence. He blinked. Meaning, I want a breakdown of every municipal tech contract tied to Metro PD cloud storage, communications, digital security. Pull the vendor list. Maya looked up from her tablet. That's extensive. Good, Danielle said. Start there. By noon, news choppers circled the hotel. Officer Blake's precinct gave a press conference. The chief beside him, flags in the background, all words rehearsed. Blake's jaw was tight, but his eyes almost smug betrayed how certain he felt of his safety. Officer Blake, a reporter called. Do you regret the way you handled the stop? He adjusted the mic. I did my job. People see what they want to see. The clip aired live. Danielle watched it on mute in her office, studying his face like a case file. No remorse, only confidence built by a system that would always protect him. Her legal counsel, Serena Odell, entered quietly. You're considering acquisition routes. Yes, then tread carefully. Retaliation claims could. I'm not retaliating, Danielle said. I'm restructuring. Serena said, even if you win the bid, oversight contracts take months. Political pushback, union pressure, money talks faster. Danielle, Serena said softly, this could get ugly. It already is. Outside, thunder rolled. By evening, Danielle's inbox overflowed. News invitations, partnership requests, messages from activists. Some were supportive, others accused her of elitism, opportunism, or silence. Each label was a mask, others forced onto her face. She deleted them all. In the quiet. She opened a digital map. City infrastructure nodes glowing like constellations, police data systems, cloud pipelines, funding routes. Her fingers traced the lines until she reached one tagged. Helios, Urban Systems Division, pending proposal. It wasn't revenge. It was leverage. Across town, Officer Blake sat in his kitchen watching the same footage replay. His wife stood by the counter, arms crossed. They're calling you racist, she said. He muttered. They call everyone racist now. You pointed a gun at her. I didn't draw it. You touched it. He rubbed his temple. Protocol? You always say that, she whispered. He turned off the TV. Silence thickened the room. Blake's phone buzzed. A text from his lieutenant. Ignore the noise. We've got your back. He exhaled, shoulders relaxing. Somewhere inside, a flicker of guilt stirred, then buried itself beneath the comfort of protection. Midnight. Danielle sat in her penthouse, laptop open, rain pattering against the glass. A headline scrolled across the muted TV. Helios CEO refuses to comment on viral arrest video. Her reflection hovered beside the text, half shadow, half steel. Maya's last email blinked unread. City procurement contracts attached. Danielle opened it. Line after line of vendor names, funding chains, and renewal clauses filled the screen. At the bottom, public safety infrastructure, renewal bid pending. She highlighted it. The storm outside cracked, thunder rolling through the glass. Her voice, quiet but certain. Let's see who owns who. The conference room's glass walls reflected the city skyline, steel, storm, and distance. Danielle Cross stood at the head of the oval table, expression unreadable as 12 board members shuffled papers and pretended not to stare. The viral clip hovered over every conversation like static electricity. Let's address the obvious, said Malcolm Trent, Helios's CFO, his tone polished and patronizing. This media incident, it's affecting investor confidence. Perhaps a short public apology would stabilize. Apology, Danielle interrupted, voice even. He gave a small, polite smile, a statement that clarifies your intentions, no blame, just optics. She didn't blink. I was humiliated in public for existing in the wrong car. Malcolm, you want optics, or you want integrity? The silence tightened. Across the table, board chair Evelyn Hart adjusted her glasses. Danielle, emotions aside, they're not emotions, Danielle said sharply. They're data points, public trust, systemic bias, institutional protection. I'm not here to heal anyone's discomfort. Evelyn sighed. You're here to lead Helios, not politicize it. That word politicize landed like an old bruise. Danielle clasped her hands, nails pressing into her palms beneath the table. Helios was built on accountability tech, surveillance, data ethics, predictive systems. If this company can't address bias, we're already complicit. Malcolm leaned back. With respect, our investors aren't looking for a crusade. She smiled faintly. They're looking for profit, and I'm giving them one. Her assistant, Maya, appeared in the doorway, carrying a tablet. Danielle nodded for her to proceed. Maya projected a chart, government contracts, projected renewal dates, estimated values. At the top, Metro Police Department, digital infrastructure proposal. A low murmur rippled through the board. Danielle continued, her voice calm, deliberate. The city's renewing its public safety infrastructure contract next quarter. Helios already supplies 70% of their encrypted data systems. I'm proposing we finalize a controlling stake through our subsidiary Helios Urban Systems. Evelyn frowned. That would give you direct operational control over their network systems. Yes, Danielle said, including data transparency protocols, officer body cam analytics, and funding oversight. Malcolm shifted in his chair. That's risky, only if you're afraid of accountability, she replied. He forced a laugh. It looks vindictive. Danielle, conflict of interest, she repeated. A man in uniform pointed a weapon at me and was rewarded with institutional defense. If you think ownership of accountability infrastructure is revenge, maybe you're part of the problem. Her words hit like cold glass. Evelyn's gaze hardened. You're emotional. Take a step back before this becomes personal. Danielle met her eyes. It already is. For a long moment, no one spoke. Rain tapped softly against the glass, the city below glinting in silence. Finally, Malcolm cleared his throat. Even if we approve this expansion, the council will never. They already have, Danielle said, sliding a document across the table. The Helios letterhead gleamed. Preliminary approval, municipal systems bid, phase I. Every head turned. Evelyn's composure faltered. You moved forward without board clearance. Danielle didn't flinch. I moved forward with board precedent. Section 1 to be grants the CEO autonomous authority over government negotiations under emergent civic demand. You manipulated the clause, Malcolm hissed. No, Danielle said softly. I read it. The tension fractured the room. Papers rustled. Someone exhaled audibly. Boffnally Evelyn spoke. If this fails, Danielle, Helios's reputation collapses with you. Then I'll make sure it doesn't fail. Her gaze swept the room, men and women in tailored suits, people who had doubted her since her first board vote. Their fear was almost tangible now, masked as concern. Approve the proposal, she said quietly, or I'll take it to the shareholders directly. Either way, we move forward. Evelyn stared at her for a long, silent beat. Then she nodded to the secretary. Motion to vote. Hands raised, hesitant but inevitable. Majority approved. Danielle gathered her papers, voice steady. Good. I'll handle the city. As she walked toward the exit, Malcolm muttered under his breath, not quite low enough. God help us if she turns that on us next. She stopped at the door but didn't turn around. You should hope I don't have to. The door closed behind her, quiet and final. Outside the boardroom, Maya caught up, whispering, that was nuclear. Danielle smiled faintly. They needed to feel the tremor. Do you really think they'll let you take control of the department systems? Danielle looked out at the skyline, rain streaking the glass like veins of light. They won't have a choice. Once the funding pipeline crosses our ledger, Helios owns the heartbeat. And Officer Blake, Danielle's reflection hardened. He'll hear it last. Thunder rolled again, deep and distant, inside Helios's main server hall. The systems hummed towers of light and data. The quiet machinery of control. Danielle's silhouette lingered against the glow, motionless. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one she was building. Officer Blake woke to the sound of his own name on television. His living room glowed blue from the morning news loop. His face, the clip, the talking heads dissecting every gesture, every syllable. Officer Brian Blake, currently under departmental review, after an encounter with Helios CEO Danielle Cross. He muted the screen and sat back, jaw tightening. The apartment smelled of burnt coffee and metal polish, the smell of a life built on order. His wife, Kara, appeared in the doorway, arms folded. You didn't tell me she was that woman. What woman? The one from the clip, the billionaire. She stopped herself, tone cautious. He rubbed his eyes. It doesn't matter who she is. It was a routine stop. She wasn't even parked illegally, Brian. He shot her a glare. Protocol doesn't ask why. It asks what. She turned off the TV. You're defending yourself to me now. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached for his badge, polishing it out of habit. The motion steadied him, the ritual of belief that uniform equals purpose. At the precinct, the mood was split. Half the department treated him like a martyr. The other half avoided his gaze. His lieutenant clapped him on the shoulder. You did nothing wrong. Media's just feeding the outrage machine. The union's behind you. Blake nodded stiffly. Appreciate it, sir. Keep your mouth shut for now. They'll handle it upstairs. He walked to his desk, ignoring the whispers. Someone had taped a meme to his locker. Doing my job, America's favorite villain. He tore it down without a word. His partner Davis leaned over the cubicle wall. She's got serious power, man. They say her company's getting contracts tied to our systems. That's politics, Blake said flatly. Yeah, well, politics just bought the servers that store our reports. Blake's hand froze midair. What? Helios, Urban Systems. City signed the deal last week. Guess who runs it? Davis's grin was half amusement, half disbelief. Blake felt his pulse quicken. He opened his laptop, searching. Headlines filled the screen. Helios Global expands into law enforcement infrastructure. Danielle Cross, the woman redefining public accountability. His throat tightened. He slammed the laptop shut. She's turning this into a vendetta. Davis shrugged. Or she's just doing what we all wish we could: control the system that screws us. Blake's glare silenced him. Don't start with that activist crap. She made this personal, Davis muttered. You made it personal when you grabbed your holster. The words hit harder than Blake expected. His jaw flexed. I followed procedure. Procedure doesn't need a target, Brian. You picked one anyway. He stood abruptly. You done? Davis raised both hands. Just saying, maybe this time, we're not the good guys. Blake walked out before the words could sink any deeper. Later that afternoon, the department held a press conference. Blake stood in uniform, flanked by Brosk. Cameras flashed. The chief read a statement about commitment to fairness and reviewing standard practices. Reporters shouted questions. One cut through. Officer Blake, do you believe race influenced your behavior that night? He stiffened. Absolutely not. Flashbulbs erupted. The chief gestured for calm. Blake stared past the cameras, into the crowd, faces blurred, lights hot. Somewhere out there, she was watching. He imagined her calm expression, the unbothered precision of someone who already knew the ending. For the first time, His chest tightened, not from anger, but from something heavier. That night, Kara found him on the couch again, staring at the muted TV. "Brian," she said softly, "what if she's not trying to destroy you? What if she's trying to expose what you're part of?" He didn't respond. "Do you ever think about that?" His voice was low, frayed. "If I start thinking like that, I can't put the uniform back on." She sat beside him, silent. On the screen, the same clip replayed in a loop. Rain, her face, his command, window down. The line echoed in his head until the words lost meaning, leaving only tone, the tone of a man who believed the badge made him untouchable. He shut the TV off. Darkness filled the room. For the first time in years, Officer Blake didn't feel sure of who he was. The limousine pulled up to City Hall beneath a sky-washed pale from rain. Danielle stepped out, flanked by her attorney Serena and assistant Maya. The marble steps gleamed under the morning sun. Reporters clustered near the barricades. Microphones reached toward her like metallic thorns. "Ms. Cross, any comment on the new police contract? Are you meeting with the mayor to discuss Officer Blake's case? Do you plan to sue?" She kept walking, face expressionless. Cameras flashed. Her heels clicked steady as a metronome. Inside, the air smelled of polished wood and politics. A staffer ushered them into the conference room. Long table, too many flags, coffee gone cold. The mayor and police commissioner were already seated. All smiles too bright to be sincere. "Ms. Cross," said Mayor Halford, rising, "we appreciate you making time to meet. Quite the week you've had." Danielle set her folder down. "That's one word for it." The commissioner forced a laugh. "Misunderstandings happen every day. Let's not let this incident define our relationship." "Incident?" Danielle's tone was soft but precise. "Your officer humiliated me in public, and your department defended him within 12 hours. I'd call that a pattern." Serena shifted, but Danielle didn't look at her. The mayor interjected smoothly. "We're taking corrective measures, a temporary suspension, community outreach, implicit bias training." Danielle cut him off. "Symbolism doesn't fix systems." He paused, fingers tightening on his pen. "Then perhaps you can tell us what does." She slid a document across the table, crisp, embossed with the Helios seal. "This," the commissioner glanced at it, "a contract renewal, a transfer," Danielle said. "Helios Urban Systems is assuming operational management of your department's data infrastructure servers, cloud archives, and evidence databases." The mayor blinked. "That's an enormous scope. Approved by your own procurement office last week," she said. "Under Clause 17, you signed a continuity agreement with our holding subsidiary. You may not have realized the name change." Halford's jaw tightened. "You maneuvered us. I followed your paperwork." The commissioner frowned. "This gives you access to internal records, not access," Danielle corrected. "Oversight." The room went still. Halford leaned forward. "Why do this, Miss Cross?" "For revenge." Her eyes flicked up. "For control." A thin smile ghosted her lips. "You built a system that mistakes authority for justice. I'm just balancing the equation." The commissioner's voice rose. "You're interfering with law enforcement operations." "On the contrary," she said, "I'm optimizing them. Every arrest report, every body cam feed, every disciplinary record now moves through Helios's transparency algorithms. No deletions, no edits, no lost files." Serena slid another folder forward. "The clause includes a third-party audit provision," she added. "Helios will report discrepancies directly to the City Ethics Committee." Halford looked between them, color draining from his face. "You're weaponizing bureaucracy." Danielle's tone was quiet. "You call it a weapon. I call it accountability." After the meeting, the press swarmed the hallway. Flashes erupted as Danielle stepped through the doors. "Ms. Cross, what was discussed inside? Are you targeting the police department? Will Officer Blake lose his job?" She stopped at the top of the stairs. The cameras zeroed in. Her answer was simple. "Helios believes systems should answer to truth, not power." Then she walked away. Back in the car, Maya exhaled shakily. "You realize what you just did?" "Yes," Danielle said. "I changed the chain of command." Serena looked out the window. "They'll come for you now. Politically, financially, maybe personally." "They already did," Danielle replied. Her phone buzzed. An email alert. "Officer Blake, disciplinary review scheduled." The corners of her mouth barely moved. "Good." At the precinct that evening, Blake sat before his lieutenant, the same man who had once promised support. The atmosphere had shifted. Less camaraderie, more caution. "Suspension pending review," the lieutenant said. City's under pressure. The Helios systems are live now. Everything's being cross-checked. Blake swallowed hard. You're serious? Body cam logs, patrol reports, complaint histories, all of it. They're combing through the data. If anything's inconsistent, Blake's voice cracked. They can't. They can. It's in the contract. He sat in silence, the weight of irony pressing down on him. The system that had always shielded him was now being rewritten by the woman he'd tried to humiliate that night. The footage replayed one last time, this time not on social media, but in an internal audit queue. The frame froze on his face, illuminated by rain and flashing lights. For the first time, the department didn't control the narrative. Helios did, and behind its servers, Danielle Cross watched the truth unfold line by line. 2 weeks later, the city pulsed with unease. Rumors leaked from inside the police department, deleted footage restored, falsified reports uncovered, disciplinary files resurfacing. Helios's audit system had turned the entire network transparent. And for the first time, the rot beneath the badges was visible. The news cycle ran on nothing else. Every hour, new headlines. Helios data sweep exposes dozens of misconduct cases. Mayor Halford faces scrutiny over long-ignored complaints. Officer Blake named an internal bias review. The system Danielle built was working too well. In the Helios control room, a glass chamber overlooking the city skyline, rows of monitors, pulsed with cascading streams of data. Danielle stood before them, hands clasped behind her back, watching as the algorithms rendered color-coded maps of corruption. Red nodes bloomed across districts like infections. Maya entered quietly. It's spreading faster than projected. 74 flagged cases in 48 hours. The oversight committee's panicking. Danielle didn't turn. Let them. They're calling it a witch hunt. Then they finally understand what it feels like to be hunted. At City Hall, the mayor's office was chaos. Halford paced behind his desk, tie loose, voice sharp. This woman has dismantled half the department in under a month. We need containment. The commissioner slammed a folder onto the table. You signed the oversight clause. We can't revoke it without breaching contract law. She owns the digital infrastructure now. Then cut her out, Halford hissed. Shut the servers down. The commissioner hesitated. They're hosted offshore, legally insulated. We'd trigger a federal review if we interfere. Halford rubbed his temples. God help us. She doesn't need God, the commissioner muttered. She's got code. Meanwhile, Blake sat in a small, sterile conference room across from 2 internal investigators. His hands fidgeted on the table. Officer Blake, bodycam footage from March 4, 2022. Contradicts your written statement, said the senior investigator flatly. Would you like to explain the discrepancy? That file was deleted, Blake muttered. Not anymore, the investigator said, sliding a tablet across. Helios recovered it. The video played. Blake's own voice filled the room, shouting at a young man during a traffic stop. The language was cruel, the tone unmistakable. He went pale. This isn't. It's time-stamped, authenticated, and cross-verified. She's doing this. The investigator looked up. Who? He said her name like a curse. Danielle Cross. Across the city, in her penthouse office, Danielle watched the feed of that same hearing. The recovered footage, the reactions, the fear. Serena stood beside her. He'll fold soon. They all will. Danielle said nothing. Her gaze stayed on the monitor, on Blake's face, cracking under the truth. You don't look satisfied, Serena said quietly. Danielle's reflection in the glass looked distant, colder. Satisfaction isn't the point. Then what is? She turned from the window. Precision. The system should correct itself, not collapse. If this spirals, they'll blame Helios, not their own corruption. Serena frowned. And if they come after you directly, they already are. By evening, her inbox filled with veiled threats, legal notices, political warnings, corporate blacklisting. Halford's office issued a statement accusing Helios of overreach. The police union called it digital vigilantism. But the data didn't care about narratives. It kept exposing patterns, unfiled complaints, hidden evidence, racial disparities coded deep in the system. Truth had no loyalty. That night, Danielle received a private message through an encrypted channel. The sender, unknown. You're dismantling the wrong target. Check who funded your audit contract. She stared at it for several seconds, then opened a secure trace window. The signal looped through 3 proxies, corporate nodes, political donors, even a shell NGO. At the center was one name she hadn't expected. Halford Industries, the mayor's own holding group. Her pulse stayed steady, but her mind sharpened. The oversight contract wasn't just legal convenience, it was a setup. They'd expected her to dig, they wanted control of what she found. She looked up at Maya. Get Serena, we've been baited. Hours later, in the boardroom, data projections filled the walls, transaction trails, campaign contributions, offshore accounts. Serena scanned the files. Halford's company seeded the Helios contract through a dummy vendor. He gave you the access, then waited for you to take the fall. Danielle's tone was surgical. Then we invert it. Pull the funding trail public. Every bribe, every cover-up, every false reform, drop it into the open system. Maya hesitated. That'll burn everyone, including you. Helios will be exposed to. Danielle didn't blink. Then let it burn. At midnight, Helios servers executed her command. The city's data infrastructure lit up. Open access portals, leaks to verified journalists, blockchain-sealed audit reports. Within hours, chaos hit the streets, politicians resigning, officers suspended, the mayor's office under siege. For the first time, the city wasn't being ruled, it was watching itself. And somewhere in that storm, Danielle stood still, calm amid the unraveling machine she had just set free. Morning came, like a verdict. The city didn't wait quietly, it erupted. News. Vans clogged the streets outside City Hall. Drone cameras hovered over the police headquarters, feeding live footage to every major network. Protesters gathered by the thousands, chanting names that had been buried in reports. Names the Helios leak resurrected. No justice, no peace. Shut it down. Accountability now. Danielle watched it unfold from her penthouse office, silent, upright, back straight as the city burned with truth. The monitors around her flashed live broadcasts. Every face, mayor, commissioner, corporate lawyer, cornered by microphones, blinking under floodlights. On one split screen, the mayor's press conference. He looked exhausted, his tie crooked, voice trembling as he tried to shift blame. We are deeply concerned about the unauthorized data breaches initiated by Helios Systems. Danielle cut the feed. Unauthorized, she murmured. He still doesn't get it. Inside the department, Officer Blake stormed through the corridor, uniform undone, badge clipped loosely. The station smelled of stale coffee and fear. Every screen along the wall replayed old footage, officers shouting slurs, planting evidence, roughing up civilians. Each clip was time-stamped, authenticated by Helios. No one could deny it now. Turn it off, he shouted, slamming his fist against the monitor. You think this means anything? A younger officer glanced up. It means we're done, sir. Blake spun on him, face flushed red. You think some tech exec knows how this city runs? She's not one of us. The younger cop didn't look away. That's the point. At Helios HQ, Serena entered with 2 lawyers and a grim expression. Federal Ethics Board is opening an investigation. Halford's calling it cyber warfare. He's trying to frame you for sabotage. Danielle didn't flinch. Let him, Donnie. He's throwing the DOJ into this. They're claiming you violated confidentiality clauses. Danielle's voice stayed level. Every clause was written to protect lies. They don't hold when the truth is public. Serena stepped closer. He'll drag you under with him. You know how these systems work. They don't punish the guilty. They punish the disruptor. Danielle finally turned, her gaze cutting through the tension. Then I'll force the disruptor to become the standard. At City Hall, Mayor Halford's office was surrounded by flashing cameras and shouting reporters. His press secretary was near tears, phones ringing nonstop. Mr. Mayor, Channel 6 wants a comment on the offshore accounts. Channel 9 says your chief of staff just resigned. Commissioner Blake's internal files are public. Halford snapped. Get me her on the phone. Danielle cross. Yes, now. The room went still. A trembling assistant placed the call on speaker. After 3 rings, Danielle's voice filled the room, steady, cold. You've reached Helios Systems. Don't play games. Cross. Halford spat. You've crossed every legal boundary this city has. I can shut your operations down within the hour. You tried that yesterday, she replied. Your warrants bounced. Offshore jurisdiction. You think you're untouchable? No, she said softly. Just inevitable. He slammed his desk. You're destroying public trust. No, she said, and her tone cut through like steel. I'm destroying your illusion of it. The line went dead. Later that night, Danielle sat alone in her office, the city glowing beneath her fire and glass, red and blue. She scrolled through messages flooding her feed, victims' families thanking her, activists reaching out, journalists asking for interviews. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. For the first time, hesitation crept in. The truth was out, but what came next? Systems don't heal just because they're exposed. They regroup, adapt. Maya entered quietly. They're saying you're the woman who broke the system. Danielle gave a faint, humorless smile. No, I just turned the mirror around. You're still in danger, Maya said. Halford's allies will retaliate. We've already seen threats. You should leave the city. Danielle leaned back, eyes tired but unwavering. If I leave, they rewrite the story. I stay, the truth stays visible. Maya looked at her, admiration and fear intertwined. Then, you better brace yourself. Tomorrow isn't the end. It's the beginning. Next morning, the department building was sealed under federal order. Reporters surrounded the barricades. Blake tried to enter but was stopped by two marshals. Officer Blake, one said, "You're under investigation for falsifying records and misconduct." He froze. "You can't badge and firearm. Now." The cameras caught every second. His badge dropped to the concrete with a dull metallic clink, the sound of authority collapsing. Back at Helios, Serena burst in, holding a tablet. "It's done. Federal task force just announced formal charges against Halford. Embezzlement, obstruction, racial discrimination in city contracts." Danielle exhaled quietly, eyes on the skyline. "Took them long enough." Serena studied her. "You won." Danielle's tone was low, distant. "Nobody wins in truth. It just stops lying for a while." Outside, rain began to fall, steady, unrelenting, washing the city in the quiet aftermath of exposure. The rain didn't stop for 3 days. It soaked the marble steps of City Hall, blurred the flashing lights of police cruisers, and turned every protest sign into pulp. But the city didn't quiet, it evolved. Headlines filled every screen, every feed, every conversation. Mayor Halford resigns amid corruption probe. Helios leak leads to arrests in racist misconduct scandal. Tech CEO Danielle Cross under federal review. Justice wasn't clean. It was jagged, grinding, slow, and it cut in every direction. In the federal courthouse downtown, cameras lined the steps like vultures. Inside, the air was cold, dry, metallic with tension. Danielle entered flanked by her attorneys. Her black suit was sharp, her expression unreadable. Across the aisle sat Halford, pale, aged overnight. His legal team whispered furiously as the judge entered. "Case number 488 70 East," says the clerk called. "City of Wexford versus Helios Systems, ETL." The murmurs died instantly. The prosecution went first, painting Helios as reckless, its founder as a vigilante who'd weaponized information. Every word was an attempt to make her power look monstrous. When it was her turn to speak, the courtroom fell still. Danielle stood slowly, every movement deliberate. "The data wasn't weaponized," she said. "It was revealed. The only difference between corruption and exposure is who controls the light." The judge leaned forward. "Miss Cross, you admit to authorizing a data release beyond your contractual scope." "I admit to honoring the public's right to truth," she said. "Your Honor, the city asked me to clean its systems. I didn't expect it to scream when I washed the blood off." A murmur rippled through the gallery. Halford's attorney shot up. "Objection. Irrelevant commentary." The judge raised a hand. Overruled. For the first time, Halford looked shaken. During recess, Danielle stood by the courthouse window, watching the storm outside. Serena joined her, holding a folder. "They'll spin this however they want. To them, truth without permission is still a crime." Danielle's gaze stayed fixed on the rain. "Then let them criminalize transparency." "You're risking everything," Serena said quietly. "Helios, your name, your legacy." Danielle finally looked at her. "Legacy is for those who need to be remembered. I just need them to stop pretending they didn't see." The afternoon session hit harder. The defense presented internal audit logs, proof that every file released by Helios matched already documented incidents the city ignored. The courtroom gasped when the files were displayed on the screen. Complaints, timestamps, officer names, administrative sign-offs. Blake's report was among them. The judge turned toward Hal. "These signatures are yours, Mr. Mayor," Halford stammered. I was advised by whom?" He hesitated. The prosecutor interjected. "Your Honor, we move to admit Exhibit 42, communications between the mayor's office and the Wexford Police Union, authorizing concealment of evidence." The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled for their phones. Danielle didn't move. She just watched the dominoes fall. That night, footage from the trial dominated every network. Commentators debated ethics, legality, morality. Some called her a hero, others a threat. But in the streets, people lit candles outside the courthouse. Small crowds gathered, silent vigils for the victims behind the data. Someone held a sign that read, "Truth isn't vandalism." At dawn, federal agents entered City Hall with sealed warrants. Helford was escorted out in handcuffs. His face, once broadcast with authority, now looked like a cautionary tale. Blake was next. He'd tried to run, but the evidence was digital, unerasable. When reporters cornered him, his only words were, "She ruined everything." And the anchor's voice, cold and measured, replied, "No, officer, she revealed it." Later that day, Danielle returned to Helios for the first time in weeks. The offices were quiet, stripped down, servers powered low, staff gone remote. The city skyline stretched gray outside her windows. Maya walked in carrying coffee. "You're trending again," she said softly. "I know. They're calling this the cross effect. Corporations are pledging data transparency reforms." Danielle gave a faint smile. "I didn't build Helios to make headlines. So what now?" She turned to face her. "Now, we disappear." Maya blinked. "Disappear. Helios goes open source. No one owns it. No one controls it. If truth can be bought, it can be buried. We make it free." Maya stared at her, a mix of awe and dread. "That means giving up everything?" Danielle's voice was low. "That means giving it to everyone." 1 week later, a quiet announcement appeared on Helios's site, effective immediately. Helios Data Integrity Framework will become open source software, accessible to all municipalities, journalists, and civic groups. No corporate logos, no signatures, just code and conviction. Within hours, cities around the world began downloading it. That night, standing on her balcony, Danielle watched as the skyline shimmered, lights flickering like signals through fog. The city was scarred, raw, uncertain, but it was awake, she whispered, almost to herself. "They can't erase what's already seen." The wind carried it away. 3 months later, Wexford was a different city, not healed, but aware. Posters of protests still clung to walls in the rain. Police cruisers carried body cams wired directly into Helios's public grid. Every press conference started with a question, not applause. Justice hadn't fixed the city. It had stripped its excuses. Danielle had disappeared from headlines. No interviews, no appearances. Some said she left the country. Others said she was working underground. In truth, she was still here, living quietly in a small apartment near the river, far from the mirrored towers of Helios HQ. Her world had shrunk deliberately. No assistants, no meetings, no cameras, just silence, code, and thought. Every morning she walked the same route, past the courthouse steps, past the bronze plaque that read, "Truth is not rebellion when silence is the crime." She had insisted that line be engraved before resigning from the board. At a small coffee shop near the docks, Serena slid into the booth across from her. She looked different, tired, older. "You vanished." Danielle stirred her drink. "I built something that was never meant to have an owner." I stepped aside. "They're calling you the woman who digitized accountability," Serena said. "You could have leveraged that into anything. A Senate seat, global contracts, power." Danielle's expression was calm. "Power was the problem. I only rewired it." Serena exhaled. "Halford's trial ends next week. He's taking a plea. Federal time." Danielle didn't react. "He'll get years. The system will call that justice. And you." Danielle looked out the window, the river reflecting dull winter light. "I wasn't on trial, just on record." Across the city, the department had a new commissioner, a black woman named Captain Renee Alston, formally sidelined for speaking against bias training fraud. She stood on the steps, giving a live address. "Transparency isn't punishment," she said into the cameras. "It's the minimum standard of democracy. And if we need an algorithm to remind us how to be honest, then we were never honest to begin with." Danielle watched the broadcast from her phone. For the first time in months, she smiled faintly. Later that evening, Maya arrived, holding a small encrypted drive. "I finished it," she said. Danielle took it. "You completed the decentralized ledger." Maya nodded. "Every Helios dataset now replicates independently. No central control. If someone tries to delete or alter history, even one line, the system rewrites the truth automatically." Danielle turned the drive in her hand, feeling its weight. "Then it's done." Maya hesitated. "And you?" "I'll fade out," Danielle said. "The system doesn't need me anymore." "Don't you want credit?" Danielle gave a small, tired laugh. Credit gets traded, truth just stays. The next morning, an anonymous upload appeared on Helios's public archive, a personal log titled Architect's Final Note. It read, "I built Helios to measure accountability, not humanity. But it taught me something. Machines can't compute. The cost of silence is never shared equally. Some bear it quietly until it breaks them. Some turn it into structure. I only gave structure to what was already screaming beneath the surface. If you use this system, remember, exposure is not revenge, it's responsibility. D.C. Within hours. It spread globally, translated, quoted. That same night, on a late news segment, an anchor spoke over footage of civic groups using Helios to uncover housing discrimination, biased sentencing, and lobbying records. The Helios framework has now been adopted in over 70 cities worldwide, she said. The woman behind it, Danielle Cross, has not been seen in public since the Wexford inquiry, but her system continues to operate quietly, relentlessly. Back in her small apartment, Danielle stood by the window, the glow of monitors fading behind her. The city hummed, sirens, trains, a pulse both wounded and alive. Serena's words echoed from months ago. "You're risking everything." And she finally understood. The full answer, risk wasn't the opposite of safety. It was the price of meaning. She whispered to herself, barely audible. They can rebuild power, but they'll never rebuild blindness. Far below, a digital billboard flickered to life. The Helios logo appeared, not corporate anymore, just a symbol. Beneath it, a single line of text glowed in white against the dark, owned by no one, powered by everyone. The city lights reflected in Danielle's eyes as she stepped back from the window, the storm clouds breaking just enough to let dawn through. For the first time, she let herself breathe. Not victory, not peace, just clarity. The truth had survived her.